William Walker wasn't much to look at. At 5 feet 2 inches and 120 pounds, with a slender frame and thinning hair, he appeared frail, and with his somber dress and mild manner, he was easily mistaken for a man of the cloth. The last thing one might take Walker for was a fighting man, and yet, as one contemporary noted, anyone who estimated Mr. Walker by his personal appearance made a great mistake. He arrested your attention with the first word he uttered, and as he proceeded, you felt convinced that he was no ordinary person. Charismatic almost in spite of himself, William Walker dramatically embodied the adventurous spirit and philosophy of 1850s America. Born in 1824 in Nashville, Tennessee, Walker was a prodigy. He attended the University of Nashville, graduating at the top of his class at 14. He studied at the universities of Heidelberg, Edinburgh, and Paris, and earned a medical degree from the University of Pennsylvania at 19. Walker practiced medicine in Philadelphia, grew weary of it, and moved to New Orleans to study and practice law. Tiring of that, he became a founding partner in the New Orleans Crescent, at which he employed an aspiring young poet named Walt Whitman. In 1849, his fiancée died of cholera, so Walker moved to San Francisco and became editor of the city's Herald as well as practiced law. During Walker's time in San Francisco, he was surrounded by many adventure seekers due to it being the time of the gold rush. He was in the perfect location to inspire fellow adventurers into the conquest of territory. In 1853, Walker decided to establish a republic of his very own inside Mexico. He first traveled to the port city of Guayama, Sonora, to try and petition the Mexican government for a grant to allow him to make an American colony there. The Mexican government turned him down because Sonora was rumored to have rich deposits of silver and suspected Walker might try to make his own state there. They may have been onto something, since Walker had printed up and sold bonds stamped Republic of Sonora. Walker returned to San Francisco to rally up men to join his cause to try and invade Sonora. Most of his recruits were Southerners, Mexican War veterans, failed gold seekers, and men in search of adventure and plunder. Since filibustering was against the law, Colonel Ethan Allen Hitchcock heard of Walker's plans and captured his brig, Arrow, in October of 1853. The sympathetic federal court ordered for the ship to be freed, and Walker was allowed to sail to Baja California. It was there that he and his recruits first attacked and seized the capital city of La Paz and raised the banner of the Republic of Lower California. He announced that the peninsula was a free region and renounced any allegiance to the country of Mexico. With word of Walker's success in La Paz, enlistment started to boom. Walker's former law partner, Henry P. Watkins, sailed down to him from San Francisco with 230 more recruits. Walker then moved his capital to Ensenada, set up his own government there. Mexican forces tried to counterattack, but ultimately failed, and Walker was able to capture 2 Mexican governors as prisoners. The only problem is that Walker had close to 300 men, but was running low on food supplies. Desertion started to happen, and Walker's forces were weakened. It was when Walker decided to leave Ensenada and try to liberate Sonora that he met his defeat. Too many of his men were deserting, and others were being killed off by local outlaws. On his 30th birthday, Walker surrendered to the American Major J. McKinstry. Walker was sent to trial in San Francisco, but was released of any charges by a rousing speech he delivered about American expansionism. It took only 8 minutes for Walker to convince the jury to acquit him. Had Walker just given up at this point, he would have become little more than just a footnote in the history of the world. But the man of destiny was just too good to be little more than a footnote in history. Walker then set his sights on the country of Nicaragua. In Nicaragua, a conflict had been raging between the country's 2 major political factions. The underdog Democrats of Nicaragua heard of William Walker and hired him to help defeat the current majority, which was the Legitimist Party. Walker inspired a new group of followers called the Immortals, to which Walker described them as men of strong character, tired of the humdrum of life. Fighting was fierce between the Immortals and the Legitimists, and oftentimes held hand-to-hand combat. They fought in the cities of Nicaragua and were heavily volleyed by the rifle fire of the Legitimists, and so the Immortals were forced to seek refuge in adobe houses. Walker and some men eventually escaped and left their wounded to a vengeful military. Walker then attacked the city of Granada and was successful. He was able to win over Granada by catching the Legitimists by surprise. There was a brief moment of peace after the attack on Granada. The Costa Rican government would break this peace because they feared Walker's lust for acquisition and declared war on Walker. Walker, with no formal military training, held a frontal assault against the Costa Rican army, but it proved to be disastrous. Luck was on Walker's side, however, since cholera spread amongst the ranks of the Costa Rican military. Instead of continuing their assault on Walker, the Costa Ricans returned home where cholera spread with devastating results. With this new story of success, several forces of Americans sailed to Nicaragua to join the now legendary General Walker. William Walker held no sympathy for the regions he took over. He saw the natives as his inferior people and treated them poorly. He had the city of Granada demolished and burned just to make a statement. Events like this were starting to cause an unfortunate turn for the lucky filibuster. Honduras, El Salvador, and Guatemala made a coalition force to try and destroy Walker. Walker was fortunate enough to be recognized as official leader of his region by the President of the United States at the time, Franklin Pierce. Walker's critical mistake was not being able to protect his steamships coming in from the United States, so they were captured or destroyed by the Honduras, El Salvador, Guatemala coalition force. With his forces weakened and the coalition force gaining American mercenaries, Walker's invasion of Nicaragua was coming to a close. On April 11, 1857, Walker is defeated by the coalition army at the Second Battle of Rivas and was forced to return to the United States in May of 1857. Walker was again tried in New York for neutrality violations, but was once again acquitted. He immediately tried to raise funds for another campaign to return to Nicaragua. It was becoming popular amongst the general public. It was at this time he wrote his autobiography, The War in Nicaragua. Walker became insanely confident with all of his successes and was able to once again recruit people to try and filibuster once again. He tried to sail to Nicaragua, but his ship had a wreck in the coral reef of the coast of Belize. The British warship rescued the small military, and they were able to land in the country of Honduras. Walker and his men were able to successfully capture the city of Koqeioph, Honduras. During Walker's time in Koqeioph, he suffered huge losses. A flotilla of 15 British warships were able to blockade any ships from coming to support Walker and his troops. The Hondurans were constantly fighting back Walker from making any progress away from Koqeioph. Walker and all of his men were eventually wounded, which left them helpless. Eventually, the British warship Icarus was able to capture Walker and his men. They turned Walker over to the Honduran authorities. Walker was condemned to death and died by a Honduran firing squad on September 12, 1860.